Welcome to Family Addiction Coaching, a podcast about families supporting a loved one with addiction. Each episode will provide insight into a real family's experience, what families find useful and not, what is available in the community, and what would help make their journey easier. Similar to what happens in our coaching service, we'll discuss how families have encouraged their loved one into recovery, as well as their own family recovery. We'll also discuss harm reduction, an especially useful approach for those with no current interest in recovery. I'm your host, Patrick Doyle of Family Addiction Coaching. With a master's degree in social work, I'm licensed by the state of Massachusetts and comply with the strict code of ethics of the National Association of Social Workers. Hello, I am Patrick Doyle, the Family Addiction Coach. For this episode, we have Lynette, who will describe how she supported her daughter through a serious illness of addiction. At this time, Lynette's daughter has been in recovery for several years. Longtime listeners may remember our guest named Amanda, who was interviewed in episode 3. Today's guest, Lynette, is the mother of Amanda. With this episode, we now have the rare opportunity to hear the perspectives of both a person with addiction as well as her parents. Hearing from both is an ultimate feel-good story, giving us hope and demonstrating that family can be powerful recovery capital. This also sends a clear message that including family improves treatment outcomes. If you enjoy this episode, the best way you could support the podcast is by writing a review and giving a rating on Apple Podcasts. Lynette, welcome to the Family Addiction Coaching Podcast. It'd be a good place to start if you could share with our audience any concerns about your daughter's health and development might have come about during late childhood.
In her early teens is when we kind of noticed that she was a little bit more withdrawn, especially in school. She didn't care about anything. She's an only child who always had pretty much, everything at her feet. She just didn't care. She didn't care about the way she dressed, the way she looked. And then that's when she was around 12 or 13. We started a process of counselors. We did jump from counselor to counselor because she had to find the right fit, or she wouldn't give that counselor any kind of cooperation. So I believe that's where we first noticed that there was something different about her. She wasn't your regular happy-go-lucky teenager.
Before that age, before, say, the age of 11 or 12, she was happy and seemed to be doing well.
Absolutely. We had her a little bit later. She was, I always say, she was the perfect child.
Really?
Yeah. She was very happy. She was giggly. She loved school. Yes, she was really, the perfect child. And I think that's one of the reasons we noticed it so strongly. It was just obvious something was not right.
Was the counseling helpful for her?
I really wasn't quite sure when it first began because, of course, she wouldn't tell me anything. So basically, it was just a matter of, taking her there. She didn't have to share with me or her dad, what was going on other than, I don't like this counselor. And then we'd try another one until finally in high school, we got the counselor that just clicked for her. She did stay with her. Sometimes she would be a little better. Maybe she wouldn't see her for a month, but then she would say, Mom or Dad, I need to go back to the counselor. Yes, she loved this counselor.
Wow. Sometimes it's really hard to get a teenager to participate in counseling.
She did find it useful. I do have to say, when she was 15, things were at such a standstill between us. I had to run away, I guess you could say.
Really?
I went and stayed a week at my sister's for just sanity of not having her come into the house so angrily every day. As a parent, we're saying, we're doing everything we can do. Why are you the way you are?
So it was
So,
her level of anger sounds like it was disruptive
oh, yes. Oh, very much so.
to the point where you felt the need to run away for a period of time.
Yes. Yep. I went away for a week.
Wow. And how did things go when you returned home?
Well, they kind of were the same. And she proceeded to tell me that the counselors said that it was immature of me to leave the house for a week.
Oh, wow.
Yes, she
Really?
did share that one with me. And
Huh.
then I said to her, well, you know what? I don't care what the counselor said, because I had to do this for my own well-being.
Good for you. It's important for parents to take care of themselves. They don't have to sacrifice their sanity, their health, their peace of mind. And it
Right.
sounds like you did the right thing.
I hope so. I mean, and not to dismiss her father. I mean, it's a very strong marriage, but her father, it was a different relationship. With me, it was argue all the time and defiance. When her father said something, she would try to argue or defy what he said, but it didn't work. So
Really?
yes, yeah, he was a little bit more stern than I
Uh-huh.
was.
Yeah.
Um, and his theory has always been, it's my job to fix things. So he would try to fix things with him and her's relationship. But with me, it was a little tougher. We would take notice of her weight or the way she was acting, just things like the coloring of her skin. I have to say, no matter how deep into a drug she never left without makeup on. Um, that was one of her things. She would, no matter how deep into a drug, she would always look clean, and she would have makeup on. So
Oh.
we would have to look underneath everything and take it from there. And when I say underneath, it would be, is she fidgeting? Is she eating? Um, how does her skin look? Is she wearing long sleeves? Is she cold? Is she hot? Different things like that we would really kind of watch for. She kind of got away from her regular friends, and she was meeting new friends, which her dad and I didn't particularly like, but she wasn't at home. So it was hard to control it. But, um, it wasn't until after her divorce that we really seen things full fledged.
Would you ask her if there was something wrong? Would you ask her how she was feeling? Would you ask her about drug use?
Absolutely. Yes.
Uh-huh.
I would say to her, Amanda, you have dark circles under your eyes. Haven't you been sleeping? Or, where are you sleeping? And oh, yes, we'd question her all the time. And that was one of the things that she didn't like about coming back home to visit, because we would ask so many
Uh-huh.
questions. She would only call us when she would get in trouble. Say she had a car accident, because there was a couple of those, or
Uh-huh.
she was with somebody and they got evicted, so she needed someplace else to sleep. That would be really the only time that she would call us.
So that must have been really hard
It
for you and
was.
for your
It
husband.
really was. And especially when you have so many friends, which we have so many friends, and you hear of their children,
Yeah.
how perfect they are, and they, stuff like that.
Oh,
So
yeah.
yes, it was very hard.
It sounds like you never turned her away. You did not give her ultimatums. You did not. Well, there's this concept called tough love, and it used to be thought that tough love was an approach that worked for parents when there was a child or a loved one, family member struggling with addiction, that if you withdraw support and withdraw attention, withdraw expressions of love and compassion, that is a way to motivate someone to get help for an addiction. You remained available, always welcoming, and always trying to establish a closer relationship when the distance happened.
We gave her ultimatums that she was to follow up with her doctor and don't go to see her just when she felt like it, because at that point we would cancel her insurance. Her father would come home even when she would come and visit, and if we were arguing, he would intercede. And if there was nothing that we could get out of this argument, he would tell her to leave. And, but again, we didn't want to let her go to the point that she wouldn't come back, because we knew, and if anything happened really bad, we were going to be the ones that she would fall back on. She would live in all these places that were pretty much hellholes to us, in the worst neighborhoods. Her dad would go and she would have bedrooms, and she would have nicer things than, say, the people she lived with. So her dad would constantly go and put deadbolts on her bedroom doors so nobody would take anything. And when you look at that as a parent, you think she would rather lay on a mattress on a floor that wasn't clean than live with us as parents. And so it's a little defeating, I guess. But like you said, I mean, we had each other's support, and that's what was really great through the whole thing.
By him installing deadbolts, for example, on her bedroom, I'm imagining that must have been a really difficult experience. And yet he protected her. He did what he could to protect her. And that's a concept called harm reduction, which is basically taking some sort of action to protect a person, such as putting the deadbolts on her bedroom door. Try to minimize the risk of coming to harm, even though the person is not really cooperative with treatment or with stopping drug use or trying to gain health and recovery. That's a wonderful example of that whole idea of harm reduction. And it didn't so much matter whether she was ready for treatment at that time.
That's exactly what it was. Making sure she had groceries, making sure she had blankets for her bed, she had her medication, the deadbolts and things like that, her car, running well, that she wouldn't break down, those kind of things. I think because as a parent, we knew she wouldn't physically let us help her, so we did everything else we could that she would give us the power to do.
That's incredible. That's exactly what harm reduction is. You helped her with her housing, with her safety, with her nutrition. You supported her in that way. Yeah, the harm reduction, people have been practicing it in one way or another forever, trying to keep people safe, people who, for whatever reason, are not able to protect themselves. Her judgment was not what it would normally have been. She couldn't protect herself. She couldn't see the danger. You stepped in to provide that protection, safety, security, and to take care of her as best you could. That's exactly what harm reduction is all about. Harm reduction is so critically important to help people with addiction stay safe, stay alive, stay as healthy as possible, to buy some time, and in hopes that they will get to a point of gaining some sort of motivation or interest to consider changing their lifestyle or getting professional help or any kind of help, social help, to help them change their lifestyle to something that will bring them more safety, more health, and help them reach their goals in life. So we hope that if nothing else, that it buys some time. To some degree, the concept of harm reduction is thought to be controversial. Many people would say that it's enabling, and some people think that it's a counterproductive type of measure. However, what we're finding out is that you can't really help somebody who's not around. And we are seeing many people eventually changing, gaining motivation to become healthier without the protection by parents such as yourselves or by society in general. A lot of people won't make it to that point of being able to be open, trying to stop the
Right.
problematic use, and in some cases, when it's necessary, trying to accept treatment. And what I notice also about harm reduction with parents, and I, as a coach, I'm focusing on coaching families. I'm not coaching the person with the addiction. I'm coaching the family members who are trying to help their loved one. The families are finding these concepts of harm reduction really useful. Sometimes I'll present it to families using an analogy. For example, if your child had a serious life-threatening cancer condition and was refusing treatment for cancer for whatever reason, would you turn your back on your child because of that? And the families always say, well, no, of course not. You still love your children and you still want to support them, even if they were to choose to not get treatment for a particular medical health condition, such as cancer. Most families would still want to have a loving relationship with that person, with their loved one. And since addiction is a medical illness, which also affects the brain and affects judgment and such,
Right.
we're drawing the analogy that if you would do it with cancer, why not do it with addiction?
It keeps you sane as a parent. You can see something's going on. You're not exactly sure what. So you're doing everything that you can. I mean, we did feel that probably when she got married, within 18 months, she was divorced. We thought maybe that they were just smoking some weed or something like that. We didn't see any kind of bodily changes or anything in her until after the divorce. She started hanging around with this one young man. Well, not actually hanging around. They were boyfriend and girlfriend, and they moved in together, and things were just not right. We were seeing some bruises, so we would ask her. There was issues with her car being tampered with. Her dad would have to go fix different things like that, that showed us that this relationship was not a good relationship. It was not a healthy relationship. That's when we started to notice physical changes. I mean, the weight loss was, I mean, it was a lot. You could see it. Asking for $20 here and $50 there. She had lost her job. She had a good job that she liked, and she lost her job, got fired. So that's when she started to hang out with this young man. That's when things really went downhill. And I said, "You're in jail? Why are you in jail?" Well, um, we were picked up on shoplifting. I didn't take anything because I couldn't, but I did drive the car, and they both got arrested. So that night, well, I said to her, your father's not home right now. He was actually out of town that weekend. I says, he's not home. I says, if you got picked up for shoplifting, you are an adult, and I'm not going to come and get you out of jail. I do believe, if I remember right, I called my husband, and he did end up coming home that night. He cut his trip short. We were going to go to the police station. We were going to go there the next day. And at 2 in the morning, the young man's mother called me and said she had just talked to him, and he told her that they were both addicted to the heroin, and they were both going through struggling in jail because, of course, there's nothing there. Yeah, withdrawal. We ended up going down that night. They wouldn't let us see her. We brought her a sweater because she did end up giving us a call again. We brought her a sweater. We brought her inhaler, and that was all we could. That's all we could really take to her. This was on a weekend. She had to see the judge on Monday. This was what the judge told her: is if you don't get into a program, then you will do some jail time. My husband went to pick her up that Monday. He practically had to carry her out to the car because she was so weak. And he said to her, he says, "Your car has been impounded. Do you want to go get it?
Yeah.
Can you drive it?" And she told him no, she couldn't drive. She was so sick. He called me at work and he says, "She's so sick, she can't walk. What do we do?" So I called our family doctor, who had been her doctor for years also. And he, of course, said, "Take her directly to the hospital." So we got her to the hospital. And for a small hospital, they knew exactly what to do. They wanted to keep her. And she said, "No, I want to go home to my bed." So from there, we took her home. We got all we could do was keep water down her. This is what the hospital told us. Make sure you keep her hydrated. And she was just curled up in a ball for it was anywhere between 3 and 5 days. And then all of a sudden, she started to walk a little bit more. And, then all the truth came out. Her dad and I, in the meantime, the night that we had heard she was on heroin, we had just talked probably 2 or 3 days before all this happened, and we were going to have a investigator follow her because we felt this was the only way we would know where she's going and find out what's going on. So, and the night that we found out that she was on the heroin, I think it just took us both to our knees. And he said, I guess I was screaming, "We have to go get her. We have to go get her." But of course, the court wouldn't let us take her. So from there, she came home, and then she's a very resourceful girl. We had told her we didn't know what to do or where to start this process. She knew she had so many days to get in a place for recovery. So she started making calls, and she got she got accepted to a place that my husband took her to. She was there for, I believe, 5 days for evaluation. She hated it. Of course, she called, "I don't like it here. I want you to come and get me. I want to come home." We're like, "No, we're not going to do it." And from there, she went to another rehabilitation for a month. And I believe once she got there was on the weekends they would have like group sessions where the parents would come in, and the whatever addiction it was in the group, and to hear the stories and to get guidance onto what we should do and what we shouldn't do. um, that really that really woke us up, and then that's when we really started learning what was going on with her. A lot of things we didn't want to know, but she told us. Um, so that's when we started getting a little bit more educated. There's just no money left. And if you get in a program because the judge tells you have to find one yourself. And what the one that she was in, I mean,
Yeah.
it wasn't like what you see on television where they're on the ocean and all this kind of stuff. It was kind of a beat down old church that they had converted. It was a government program. And it was, the furniture, it was just some
Right.
chairs, and there were some pretty bad
Uh-huh.
stories that she was in there with. And I'd like to think that it kind of woke her up because when she was there, when we would get there on the weekend and we would have our family sessions,
Yeah.
she was the only one there that she'd
Yeah.
say, okay, I grew up in a house. My parents didn't smoke. And they would say, well, what are you doing in here? It just goes to show that it can happen to anybody, any family. What did we do wrong? And I disagreed with him. I said, we did everything right that we knew what to do. I had no doubt, though he
Yeah.
did. He was the best dad he knew what to be, and he was. He's a fantastic father.
And how great that he was able to go to Al Anon. You don't necessarily see a lot of men in Al Anon meetings.
She had went to a private school when she was younger, and then when we had moved to our small town, we sent her to a public
Yeah.
school, and we kind of got away from church a little bit. So it just so
Mm-hmm.
happened, just before all of this blew up, we had just started going back to church, and we had really found peace
Uh-huh.
in the Lord. It really was because we learned that He's going to do things His way. So, but by the groups that we were in,
Uh,
we had a
yeah.
Bible study group that was phenomenal, and they would pray for her every week. And it's amazing,
Yeah.
Patrick, how things happened. Like she had gotten disability. Well, nobody gets disability within the month that you apply for it.
Really?
And we had prayed about it. When she'd call me, she'd say, Mom, I got my disability. How did I get it this quickly? Everything fell into place.
Right.
It truly was like a miracle. It really opened
Wow.
up our eyes to what God can do. He
Really?
he just needed us to come back to him. That's what he needed.
Yeah, and faith can be a tremendous support in dealing with life and certainly in dealing with addiction. As a family, you were suffering tremendously for years and years. How
Yes,
great that you
absolutely.
somehow found your way back to your faith. One thing that your daughter told me was about how she got so many cards and letters from you and from extended family members while she was in the residential treatment center. That really blew her away. She was incredibly touched by that.
Mom kind of, she's older, so it's
Uh-huh.
harder. She knew something was going on because one night they were actually visiting, and Amanda, passed out on his shoulder. I kind of wear my heart on a sleeve, so I never hid the fact that there was something going on. And when everyone
Uh,
found out, and people say, what can I do? People want to do something. And that's when I said, send her a
yeah.
card, let her know that you support her. Like you said, it resonated with her. And I never knew that till quite a few years later. She told me that it was really important. My cousins knew that I was close to. My husband's family, they're a very tight knit Polish family, you know, the ones that we were real close.
Yeah.
His aunts, when we would have a holiday, would always say, "Well, how's Amanda? Where is she?" And at that point, we would say, "Well, Auntie, this is what's going on." Again, they'd say,
Yeah.
"What can we do?" And I'd say, "Just send her a card and let her know you're thinking of her." And they did.
That's amazing. It's amazing. It sounds like everyone understood. Nobody was holding it against your daughter.
Right.
And they understood that this was a medical condition. So how remarkable that you had that big base of support. When you saw your daughter at some point after you had found out about the heroin and the arrest, that you went to her and you used the expression, nobody's perfect, that really struck me. And I thought, wow, how cool is that? Certainly, you know, a parent is going to be devastated, scared upon learning about heroin addiction and such, and possibly going to jail. And there could be so many different kinds of reactions. It just struck me as the best thing a parent could possibly say.
I didn't want her to think that she was so broken that she couldn't be fixed.
None of us are, right?
Right. Right.
So that's what you were communicating. We always have an opportunity to learn from our mistakes and to make corrections, make changes in life. That's amazing. Yeah, I just love it.
If you're not doing something that you're doing out of meanness or hatred or something like that, we all make mistakes. Nobody's perfect. And once she got on the Suboxone, that urge for the drug was not there.
Yeah.
That was her road back to success. But it took her probably 7 to 8 years for her to come out of like this brain fog where she became close to us, to have empathy and concern. When she was on the drug, there was none of that in her life. She is the loving, caring daughter we always wished we had had. But the past is the past. We're happy she's here and happy she's our girl again.
So for her to learn that compassion, being considerate and courteous, taking your feelings or other people's feelings and needs into account, that was a long process.
Mm-hmm.
You never did give up on her, did you? Having family who believed in her, that seems to be what helped her get into a positive, healthy recovery. I've known her a couple of years, your daughter. So I've always experienced her that way, you know, loving, caring, giving of herself.
She met somebody when she was of clear mind. She met a man that to this day, he's really put up with a lot of stuff with her, but he has stood by her. If he had an issue, he would call us.
Yeah.
And it's just the relationship that she has with him is wonderful. And again, we always tell him, you know, God sent you when she needed it to see how it is to be in a good relationship. So that has really helped her also.
So much of parenting, effective, good, loving parenting, so much of that is unspoken, but it's actions and consistency and respect woven in throughout daily life, not even necessarily spoken. And I've got to believe that that's your daughter. She learned all of that from you. She lost it for a long time due to her illness, but now she's got it back again. It's from that loving, nurturing family protecting her and giving her a good start in life. It's really an incredible story.
Listening is very hard to do, especially without giving advice. When they're done, just give them support. That's all you can do. Just watch your child. You know when something's going on.
Yeah.
What was that word you used again, Patrick? When we when we take care of them in indirect ways. Harm reduction. I love that word. I love it. Yeah, the harm reduction. try to keep them as safe as you can. That's all you can do. And as a parent, talk to
Oh,
another
harm
parent that's
reduction.
been through it.
Yeah.
It really makes a
Yeah.
difference. It helps them understand. Or if you have really close friends like I do, go to your close friends. Don't keep it bottled up
Yeah.
inside. I guess that's one of the big things. Don't keep it bottled up, because you have to be
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
maybe when that child falls again. So you need to have the strength that it's going to take to get through this time after time after time.
Thank you for sharing that. Another thing I would add on top of that, for people struggling with addiction in their family, never give up. Well, Lynette, this has been a delightful discussion. I've learned a lot. I'm sure our audience has learned a lot as well. It's just been wonderful tonight. Thank you. And it's true, I'm not just making this up. I do think the world of your daughter. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Family Addiction Coaching. And if you liked what you heard, please subscribe to the show. We'll continue to interview interesting and strong families as long as there is a need for this information in the community. Make sure to visit our website, www.opioidcoaching.com. If you think you might want professional coaching for yourself or your family, Patrick Doyle is available. Have a peaceful day.